to do the other half of the lesson, and we have already started the second term first lesson, and that was Unit 5, a second chance called tomorrow. We have already done the first part of this lesson, and today we are moving to the second part of this lesson. Today we are going to learn synonyms and antonyms. What do you know about synonym and antonyms? Have you ever heard that? Okay, we'll see what are these topics. First, we are going to talk about synonyms. What is a synonym? Synonyms are words that are similar or have a related meaning to another word. Similar word. The words which give another word a similar idea, we call them synonyms. So that is the first part of the lesson what we are going to learn today. Synonyms. And what are synonyms? Synonyms are words that are similar or have a related meaning to another word. We can call that similar words. Here I have taken some examples. Let's go through the examples. The first example which I was taken is bad. When we talk about bad, what are the other words that we can use instead of bad? That's what called similar words. That's what we are talking as synonyms. Synonyms, similar words, same words, all these are same topics what we are talking now. So the first word what I was taken is bad, and here are some same words or similar words what we can use instead of the word bad. Here you can see awful, terrible, horrible, those kinds of many words are there. You just think I'm talking about a boy. I can tell a sentence like this, he's a bad boy. Instead of bad, I can use one of these words. That's what we are calling synonym. Instead of this word, we can use one of these words. Right, then the second one, good. The first one was bad, and the next word what we are going to learn is good. What are the other words we can use for good? Fine, excellent, great. She's a good girl. She's a fine girl. We can use like that. We can use these kind of words instead of this given word. Hot. Hot. What are the similar words or synonyms you can use to hot? You can use burning, fiery, boiling. According to the idea what you want to give, according to the situation, you can use these words instead of this word. That's why we are calling these synonyms. The idea gives the same meaning as the first word. Cold. If you want to say it's cold, what are the other words you can use instead of that? You can say chilly, freezy, frosty. If you feel cold, you can use not only this word, you can use these words as well. Then let's move to the other one. Easy. It's an easy game. Instead of easy, what are the other words you can use? You can say it's a simple game, or effortless, straightforward. Instead of this word, you can use one of these words. Not only these, there may be more. So you can find more synonyms if you find a word. Right. Now we have learnt about synonyms. Next, move to the other part. The main topic what I was given earlier is synonyms and antonyms and synonyms. So here we are talking about antonyms. What is an antonym? Antonyms are words with opposite meanings. Now earlier we talked about synonyms which gives similar ideas, but here we are talking about the words which gives different ideas or opposite idea, opposite meaning to one, or have a different meaning to another word. So here we can't find similar words. Here we can see different ideas, so different meanings. Let's go through the examples. Here I have given few examples. You can see those things. I have given arrive, innocent, simple, arrogant, knowledge, single. These are the words what I have given here as examples, and you can see the antonyms what I wrote here. What is the opposite idea of arrive? depart. If someone have arrived to some place, when he went out, you can say depart. When someone came inside, we can say arrive. And when someone went, we can say depart. The opposite idea gives here. Then innocent. She is an innocent girl. Then you can say she is a guilty. She is a guilty person here. Like that. So it gives the different or the opposite idea here. Then simple. It's a simple paper. If it is not simple, the negative or the opposite idea, it gives like complicated. Complicated. Here it gives the different or the opposite idea than the first word given. Then arrogant. We can say like proud. So what is the antonym for that? Humble. She is arrogant. She is proud. Then you can say she is humble. That means it gives the opposite idea. Knowledge. Then ignorance. So if you want the opposite of knowledge, that is ignorance. You can find more difficult, more antonyms for one word. There are not only one opposite for one word, you can find many different words for antonyms. Then the last one is single. She is single, and you can say the opposite of that, she is married. So these words are called antonyms. So here we have discussed about antonyms and synonyms. I said antonyms gives different ideas. In the same time, when synonyms give the similar ideas, and we went through some examples as well. Let's move to the other part. Right, we are going to the activity. We have already learned 100 meters comprehension, and we have completed all the questions and answers there. Then the other part of that lesson is antonyms and synonyms, that now we have learned about that as well. Then let's go to the activity. Find synonyms for the following words from the passage. That means you have to go through 100 meters lesson to find these synonyms for the given words. Here I have already mentioned them. So these words you can find from the passage. You just imagine in a paper you got the same question like this. A paragraph was given and they are asking questions, and they will say you to find synonyms and antonyms, and they are asking you to find from the passage. So at that time you just imagine you know many more words regarding the words given, but you can't write whatever you know. You have to find the words from the passage and you have to write here. So here the words are given is big, proud, fasting, frighten, mark, wrong. And these are the words which I found from the passage. Big, you can find large as a similar word for that. Proud, arrogant is a similar word for proud. Fasting, pinning something. Then frightened, scared. Mark, stain, wrong, mistakes. So these words are the given words here, and these are the similar words what you can select from the comprehension 100 meters. Only these words you can write here. You can't find any other words what you know, and you can't write instead of that because you were asked find from the passage. The activity, what you have to do is you have to find the synonyms from the activity and write here. So you have to find the correct word, the correct synonym to these given words, and you have to mention here. Okay, the activity 7, they are what you have to do. Find antonyms for the following words from the passage. Here also the same. You may know many antonyms to the given words, but you can't write whatever you want. You have to go through the passage, go through the given passage, and you have to find the correct antonym to the given word. We'll see what are the words given. Back, loss, slower, start, harshly, sadness. These are the words given under the activity. And these are the words what you can find from the passage as antonyms to these given words. Let's go through them. Back, you can see the word front. Loss, the antonym is won. And here slower, the antonym is faster. Start, the antonyms is end. Harshly, gently. And the last one, sadness, you can find the antonym as joy. So here we have to find these antonyms from the passage. For both these activities, you can't write the ideas what you have to go through the passage and you have to find correct synonyms as well as the antonyms, and you have to write here. Question words. We are going to learn about question words. What is the idea you have about question words? When we need question words, when the word here question, you know we need question words when we are asking questions from others. There are some situations you have to use question words when we are asking questions. You can't just use normal sentence to ask a question. So here, when you are asking a question from the other person, these question words can be used. Let's see what's the question word. An interrogative word or question word is a function word used to ask a question. That is the explanation given here. What is a question word? A question word, or we can say that an interrogative. Instead of question word, this word can be used interrogative. Interrogative is question word. So interrogative word, or we say them question word, is a function word used to ask questions. When we are talking or when we are using normal statements, we no need to use question words. But when we are asking a question from someone, these question words can be used. Let's see what are the question words given. What, which, when, who, whom, whose, why, whether, how, where. These are the question words given here. So you can use these question words when you are asking different kind of questions. When you are asking about something, you can use like what, which. You are asking about a non-living thing, you can use these words. But when you are asking about a question regarding a living thing, you can use these words like who, whom, whose. These are the words what you can use when you are asking a question regarding a living thing. Not only those, when you are asking about a date or a time, when you are asking a question, this is the word what you can use, when. Like that, these question words we can use in different situations. That's why here are few question words, and we can call these question words as WH words, because most of the question words starts from W and H. You can see here only few are there which we can start from other words. So we can call these question words or interrogative as WH words. Let's move to the activity which comes under these question words. Mudalihami comes back to school after winning the 100 meters race. Imagine you are his friends and write down the questions that you want to ask him about the competition. Now we have already went through that comprehension and we know what has happened there. Mudalihami was there and he won a race. So he has come to the school after winning the race. So you just imagine you are the friends of Mudalihami and you have to ask some questions. So we'll see what are the questions that we can ask from Mudalihami. Now when we are asking questions, the words, question words what we have already learned, you have to use them. We can use these question words when we are asking questions from Mudalihami. You may use the question words where, who, when, which, why, how, etc. You can use any question words to use or to ask questions from Mudalihami. Let's ask the first question from Mudalihami. Now you want to know where was it held, because we know that Mudalihami was a village boy and he went to a city and he went to a big school and a big ground like that. So you are his friends. Now you have many questions to ask from Mudalihami. So you can ask many different questions. From that, the very first one what comes to your mind may be this: where was the competition held? Because Mudalihami went to a big competition, so you can ask a question like this: where was the competition held? So here you can see I have used the question word first. When I am starting to ask the question, first I have used the question word. So I want to ask where it was held, the place. So I can ask where was the competition held. Why did I use was here? Because the competition was already finished. So it's past tense. So you can use was when asking a question, something regarding past. So here, where was the competition held? And here I have put a question mark. That is very, very important. When you are asking a question, when you are writing a question, end of the question, there should be a question mark. Right. Let's move to the other one. Where was the event held? Either you can use competition or you can use event as well. So not only where was the competition held, you can use where was the event held. That's the same question. I have used just different two words. Those two words you can use when you're asking about the place. Right. With whom did you go to the event? With whom? With whom? Who went with Mudalihami to the event? That's what I want to ask. So with whom did you go? Again, I am asking using past tense because this incident, this event has already happened. So with whom did you go? When we use the question word did, the verb we have to use in present tense. So here present plural. So here with whom did you go to the event? End of this, again I have used a question mark. Right. When was the event held? Again you can see all the question words I have used when I am starting the question. So wherever you are asking a question, you have to use a question word first. When was the event held? When? From when we can ask about a date or a time. When was the event held? The date. We are asking from this question when it has happened, the date. What did you see there? Because Mudalihami is a village boy. We have already known that. So he has seen many things there. So the friends, they didn't see those things. They are still in the village. So they can ask, what are the things you saw there? So the question you can ask like this. What did you see there? What? The question word used here is what. What did you? We are using this did because we are asking something which has happened in the past. So what did you see there? And the end of the sentence, again we have used the question mark. Then the last one. How did you feel? We know that Mudalihami felt many things when the race was started. He was thinking that the place is not good to him and how the people will treat him. Those questions were in his mind. So the friends, Mudalihami's friends also want to know about that. If they want to know about his feelings, so they can ask this question. How did you feel? How? How did you feel? So here the past, the question is in past form. So I have used did and finally the verb. Then we are ending the question from a question word. So I think that after discussing all these questions, you can understand how to form a question. First, we have to use the question word, or we are telling that integratives, or you can use WH word as well. So first we have to use these question words. Then according to the time, according to the tense, you can make the question. But if you are writing the question, end of a question, there must be a question mark. Right. Now we have completed this part. Let's move to the other part. Right. Here we can see an activity, that is activity 9. We have to do a speaking activity here. We'll see what is that. Imagine one of you is Mudalihami. Now just imagine Mudalihami's friends are asking many questions and you are Mudalihami. Take the questions one by one and answer them. Right, now we know what are the questions we have already learned. We discussed all those questions in earlier part. Now here what we have to do is, now you have to just imagine you are Mudalihami and you have to answer the questions which was asked by your friends. Let's go through the questions again. The very first question what we were discussing was, where was the event held? Where was the event held? So how can you give the answer for such a question? Where? From where? Your friends are asking about the place. So where was the event held? We'll see what is the answer or how the answer can be given. So they are asking about the event. So you have to start the question from that word. The event was held. Here I have used was because the question was asked using past tense. When we are writing answers to the given question, you have to understand what is the tense used there. So here they have used past tense. This is a past helping verb. Here you can start from the event because they are asking about the event. The event was held because the question was asked using past tense. So the question was held at, finally we are giving the answer, at the playground. That is the answer. Sometimes you are giving the answers like just at the playground. We have seen those kinds of answers when a question was asked. Children used to give short answers. But more than giving a short answer, you can score more marks when you write full answer, and it is a must to write a full answer as a grade 9 student. So here you can write the event was held at the playground instead of writing just the playground. Okay, let's move to the next question. With whom did you go to the event? With whom did you go to the event? With whom? Who went with Mudalihami? So we know who went with Mudalihami. Let's see the answer. I went with sports teacher. Why did I use I? Why did I use I here? Because they have said here, imagine one of you is Mudalihami. So you can say using I thinking that you are Mudalihami. With whom did you go to event? Your friend is asking, with whom did you go to event? So you have to just imagine you are Mudalihami. So you can use I. I went with. With whom did you go? I went with. Then the answer, sports teacher. We know that Mudalihami went to the event with his sports teacher. So he can give the answer as I went with the sports teacher. Here I have used went, the past verb, because the question is asked using past tense. Right, the third question. When was the event held? When? Then here in the passage, I hope the answer is not there. So just you can create an answer and you can write, the event was held in February. You can tell a date, a month or whatever you want. You can say, when was the event held? The event was held in February. Normally you have the sports meet during February. So you can give the answer like that. The event was held in February. What did you see there? That is a question we discussed. That's a question we discussed there. What did you see there? So what are the things Mudalihami saw there? Now Mudalihami is giving the answer like this. I saw. What are the things he saw there? I saw a large playground and a big crowd there. We knew that when he saw the big playground and the crowd, he was a bit scared. So he can just give his idea like this. I saw a large playground and a big crowd there. If you are giving your answer, you can add anything you want. Then the last question, how did you feel? How did you feel? Then Mudalihami gives the answer, I felt so scared. We know that he felt so scared at the beginning. So here he can say, I felt. What he felt at that moment in the past. I felt so scared. So this is a word what you can use if you are Mudalihami. So these are the questions what we discussed earlier, and these are the answers what you can use to give the answers for such questions. Right, now we have already covered the part question words. You know question words can be called as integratives or WH words as well. We are using question words when we are asking questions, and if you are writing a question, end of the sentence you have to write a question word as well. So try to make many questions and you can then practice about these question words. Okay children, I have a question. If you are going to shopping, what do you like to buy? What comes to your mind first? Yeah, someone say that cloth, a bag, maybe stationeries. You may have different things to buy. But if I ask, what do you like to wear? If you want to buy something that you want to wear, what is the most important thing that you want to buy? Some may say jewelries, or some may say blouse, trousers, caps, jerseys, hats. There are many things that we can wear. What do you think about this? Footwear. If you have a chance to buy something to wear, do you first think that I want to buy a shoe or I want to buy a slipper? So here we are going to talk about those footwears. Personally, I prefer to wear footwears, shoes. So I would just want to know the history of that. So here we can see a lesson. It is activity 11 reading, the history of footwear. So let's see what is the history of footwear. Read the passage and complete the table. When the lesson is over, we can see a table. So when we are going through these, just we have to discuss it. Then finally, let's go to the table and have a look. So here from this lesson, from this activity, we are going to learn about footwear, the history of footwear. Right. Historically, shoes were worn primarily for protection. According to archaeological evidence, experts believe that shoes were invented about 40,000 years ago. Oh my God, it's not easy. It's not in the present history. It is 40,000 years ago. That means the people who lived in 40,000 years ago, they used to wear footwear. Okay. However, it was not until some time later that footwear was worn by people frequently. Maybe they have very rarely they used to wear footwear at that time. It is hard to imagine a time before the invention of shoes, but before 40,000 years, that's mean like 15,000 years ago, there is no evidence regarding that, but the evidence is there that 40,000 years ago people used to wear footwear. Right, yet what started as a particular venture grew into a varied, booming industry. Earlier people used to wear the shoes by creating for themselves. Whatever they want to wear to cover their feet, they have used some things and they have created that by themselves. But later, this thing, the venture grew into a varied booming industry. It became an industry. That means the people used to create footwear or make footwear not to fulfill their own needs but to fulfill others. Then they used to make it as an industry. Though all shoes share basic characteristics, their coloring, materials and designs have transformed drastically over thousands of years. We know now when we are going to a shoe shop, we can see different colors, different sizes, different patterns of shoes, right? So it has happened not only within one day. There was like a huge history for footwear, and from year to year the shoe wears were developed and different from the earlier year. The earlier shoes were made of soft leather. They resembled either sandals or moccasins. Here you can see some picture. I hope that the shoes are made from kind of leaves, but normally the leather they have used not only these leaves, later on they have used leathers. In the early 19th century, now earlier we discussed about 40,000 years ago what has happened to the footwear. Here it discussed in the early 19th century, women's and men's shoes finally began to differ from one another in style, color, heel and toe shape. During this era, shoes were made straight, meaning that there was no differentiation between left and right shoes. Now earlier the people didn't think about whether the shoe is worn by a woman or a man. But later when they developed the product and when they are developed it as an industry, they were thinking to whom they have to make the shoe, whether it's a woman or a man. So according to the person to whom they are selling it, they differs the shape, the sizes, the colors and the patterns of shoes. Not only that, it says here, earlier they have worn a same shoe, that means no different shapes for left and right legs. Both shoes are same. But we know now when we are wearing a shoe, it differs from left side. We can't wear the right one to the left leg. So it differs, it gives the shape of the leg. So later on people used to find that difference in between our legs and they have used to change the shape of the pair of shoes. As the 20th century approached, shoemakers improved comfort by making foot-specific shoes. Now earlier the shoes are not comfortable. They use them to just cover their feet and to give a protection. Earlier they used shoes to protect their feet. But later on they wanted to find a comfort for that. So they use different style, different materials to give a comfortable to the legs. As the 20th century approached, then it has happened when the 20th century approached. Then the face of the footwear changed drastically from decades to decades. The shape or the look what we can see, if we see a shoe in 40,000 years ago and when we are comparing to now, it is different. That means it has happened from decades to decades. This was due to the technological advances that made the shoemaking process simpler. I said that it was an industry later on. Now it's an industry. So when the industry is there, there is a competition. So people used to make not only simple shoes, advanced shoes, something different to the earlier things what they have already made. In the early 70s, platform shoes and wedges were popular among women. That's mean not flat, the high heels one, some shoe or something, a sandal or whatever with a heel. They used to wear that in the early 70s. Women, though, they became less so in the 80s and 90s. But what has happened in the 80s and 90s? Again, people used to wear shoes more than, especially women. They used to wear heels early 70s, but later on in the 80s and 90s, again they changed into shoes without more than wearing high heels. Men's shoes trends, however, were mostly static, as the types such as Oxford means leather shoes that fasten with lace. You can tie the leather shoes with using a lace, and loafers, leather shoes that you can wear without fastening them. No need to tie a lace. Without tying a lace, you can wear leathers. Remain the dominant style. Women use different kind of styles, but normally most of the men use these two. Either they are tying using a lace or without a lace. Though men's shoe styles remain relatively unchanged, women's shoes made dramatic change in their appearance, as we discussed earlier. Women's shoes became arched, sophisticated and were made to highlight the foot. From the shoes which worn by the women, they used that to just give a highlight to their legs. The heels grew narrow and narrower as time progressed. The heels, earlier it was just big, wide, but later on it became narrower and narrower. At present, the footwear industry has become a thriving business. If footwear trends continue in this fashion, we can expect the shoes of the future to be even more out of this world. That means if we are comparing with the 40,000 years back shoes, and when we are just see the shoes what we have now, we can imagine how the footwear or the shoe industry can be changed in the future. So this is the lesson what we have to learn here, and I said earlier we have a table. Here I have given the table in this format. So they have given us the periods. We have earlier we have discussed about few periods where the main difference has happened in footwear, the history of footwear. So they have given all these periods here, and let's go through the let's go through what has happened during this time period. As the 20th century approached, what has happened? Shoemakers improved comfort by making foot specific shoes. In the 20th century, people used to make shoes which can give a good comfortable for feet. Then in the early 70s, platform shoes and wedges were popular among women. I said you that heels, the women used to wear heels. That has happened in the earlier 70s. Then in the 80s and 90s, what has happened? The popularity for the platform shoes were decreased. So platform shoes and wedges were not popular among women. In the earlier 19th century, women's and men's shoes finally began to differ. Earlier, both women and men's shoes were same. Then after the 19th century, it differed. About 40,000 years ago, shoes were invented. Before 40,000 years, the shoes were invented. So that is the history about footwear. I hope if you are a person who likes to wear shoes, slippers, whatever as footwear, this will be good to get knowledge for you. And here also we have discussed the main points, the different according to the different time, how the shoes differs and what has happened to the shoe industry. So we can move to the next part. We are moving to a grammar part. When we are discussing about grammar, there are tenses. Tenses comes under voices. What are the voices we can find in English grammar? There are two voices. One is active voice, the other one is passive voice. We can see two voices when we are going through grammar in English language. So here active voice we have already learned and we have already discussed, and passive voice also I hope that you have an idea about passive voice. Today we are going to move to the passive voice past tense. Now as we discussed, there are active voices as well as passive voices. Here we are going to learn passive voice. Under the passive voice we are going to learn past tense. Let's see what is passive voice first. Then let's discuss about past tense of that. The passive voice is used when we want to emphasize the action. An action which can be done by someone. Action, or we can say that verb of the sentence. A verb. Verb is something, an action. We can call that as an action. So the passive voice is used when we want to emphasize. When we want to emphasize the action, or we can say the verb and the object. Not only the action, the object as well. Action, the verb and the object of a sentence rather than the subject. When we use, or when the subject is important, as you all know, when we are writing or when we are discussing about active voice, the subject is very, very important, because in active voice we are making sentences firstly using the subject, or more important is given to the subject. But here what is the difference in between active voice and passive voice? Here it says rather than the subject. That means in the active voice we use the subject as the main thing. But in the passive voice, rather than the subject, we are giving more importance to the action, or we can say the verb, and to the object. So in active voice, subject is the main thing, or the doer, we can say the doer who's doing the action. We are calling the person who's doing the action the doer, or in a grammatically word we can use that subject. So in active voice we are using the subjects as the main point, but in passive voice we give more important place rather than subject. We are giving the importance to the action and the object. So in the passive voice we need more than the subject, the important part is the action, the verb, we can call action or the verb, and the object. This means the subject is either less important. Sometimes some situations are there, we can mention subject, but we give not very important to that, we give less important to that in passive voice. Okay, then this means that the subject is either less important than the action itself, or that we don't know who or what the subject is. Sometimes in passive voice we give less importance to the subject. Sometimes we can mention that if we know, but we are not giving importance to that. But sometimes we don't know who has done the action. Either we no need to highlight the doer or the subject, or we don't know who is the doer. So at that moment we want to use passive voice. If you don't know who has done particular action, or if you don't want to mention who has done that, you can use passive voice than active voice. Okay, now we'll see what is the difference in between active voice and passive voice. We have already discussed. Let's make it as a summary. Active and passive. The active voice describes a sentence where the subject performs the action started by the verb. With passive voice, the subject is acted upon by the verb. There we give the main place to the object, and then the verb, then only we are discussing about the subject. Right. Now let's see how we have to translate, or how we have to create active voice into passive voice. Now as we have already discussed, we are talking about passive voice past simple tense or past tense here. So active, how to convert active voice past tense sentence into passive voice past tense sentence. That's what we are going to learn through this part. Past simple tense in active voice. We know that when we are discussing about a tense in active voice or in passive voice, we have a structure for the sentence. We have a common structure when we are using a sentence or a tense. Active voice, we use subject, verb, object. SVO, we are telling it like in a short form like SVO, subject, verb, object. So from that, when we are discussing about simple past tense, how we are creating the structure of a sentence. This is the way how we are using active voice past simple tense sentence. First, we are using the subject. Then we are discussing about the verb. But here you have to keep in your mind, we are talking about past simple tense. So the verb must be in past. That is the main or the important thing you have to keep in your mind. Past simple tense, active voice, first we are taking the subject, then the verb, and the verb should be in the past. Then we are talking about the object. Then after verb we are discussing about the object. So in active voice, first subject, verb, object, and if we are going through the past simple tense, the subject and the verb in past, then the object. Right. Here is an example. My mother cooked vegetables. Here we will see what is the subject, what is the verb, and the object in this sentence. Right. Subject. Who has done this Who did this action? Who is the person did this action? My mother. So, the subject of this example is my mother. This is the subject. Then we can see the verb with ed. That means verb in past, cooked. Then the second part, or we can say the verb. My mother cooked. What did your mother cook? My mother cooked vegetables. That is the object which comes under the verb. So, my mother cooked vegetables, that means subject, verb in past, then the object. Here you can see that. My mother is the subject, cooked is verb in past because we are discussing about past tense, then vegetable is the object. Now, let us see what is in passive voice. When we turn this into passive voice, let us see what is happening there. I said earlier, in passive voice, we are not giving an importance to subject. We are giving the more importance to the object than the subject. So, when we are writing or when we are discussing about passive voice, first we have to take the object. So, the object comes first. Then we have to use, instead of the verb, a helping verb. In passive voice, the structure we know, first we are taking the object, then we have to take a helping verb. Now here we are talking about past simple tense. So, in past, what are the helping verbs we use to express the idea that this is something about past? You can use either was or were. According to the object given, if the object is singular, you can use was. If the object is plural, you can use were. So, was, were differ from that. According to the object, this can be selected. Then we are going to the verb in past participle. The verb form comes in past participle, and that is the third part of the passive voice sentence. Then finally, if you want to mention, giving less important, if you want to mention, you can use by subject. By whom this was done, who has done this. Finally, you can use if you want that. If you do not want, you can just remove that part and you can use only object, helping verb, was and were when you are talking about past tense, then verb in past participle. Let us go to the example here. Vegetables were cooked by mother. Here you can see my mother cooked vegetable, and here my mother is subject, cooked is the verb in past, then vegetable is the object. As we discussed in passive voice, we have to take the object first. So, I am taking the object first, that is vegetables. I have taken the object first, vegetables. Then vegetables is, you have to find whether it is singular object or a plural one, whether it is singular or plural. So, vegetables means it is plural. So, from was and were helping verb, for the plural one you have to use were. Then vegetables were, verb, the third part is verb in past participle. Again cooked, here we have used as past, here we are using cooked as past participle. Then vegetables were cooked by my mother. If you want to mention that, you can use by my mother. If you do not want, you can just write vegetables were cooked, no harm. But if you want to mention that your mother has done it, no problem, you can use by my mother, right? Okay, right. This is how we can use active into passive, how we can make active sentence into passive voice. What you have to keep in your mind is, in active voice, the subject, verb, object we are taking at the structure. In passive voice, we take it as object, helping verb, then verb in past participle, then by subject. So, this is the format what you can use when you are making sentences in passive voice past tense. And here I just want to go through this part, by plus subject. There are different situations, that different subjects we can see, and how we are using that in passive voice. Let us go through that and have a look. subject in active voice. How we are using the subject in active voice. And when we turn the active voice into passive voice, how the subject turns. That's what we are going to learn from this part. So, this is called subject in active and passive. Subject in active and passive. We know these are the normal subjects we learn. I, we, you, they, he, she, it. So, in active voice, we use these subjects when we are starting a sentence. In active voice, we are using these subjects when we are starting a sentence. And I explained in earlier part, subjects are changed in passive voice because we are not giving an important place to the subject. And the same subject we are using in a different way in passive voice. Now, this is the way what we are using, how we are using subject. I is changed into by me. I cooked rice. I cooked rice. That means I did that. I cooked rice. How you are writing that using passive voice? The rice was cooked by me. Rice was cooked by me. The word I turns into by me. Rice was cooked by me. So, the same word I differs in passive voice there. Then we, if we are using we in a sentence in active voice, we are using that first. But when we are using the same words in passive voice, we use it as by us. Let's take an example. We played volleyball. We played volleyball. We played, verb in past. We played volleyball. Then how you can write it in passive voice? Volleyball was played by us. We can't say by we. We are not using like that. We can't use volleyball was played by we. That is wrong. We have to use volleyball was played by us. Then you. How we are writing that in passive voice? We can use it like by you. Then they, it turns into by them. We can't use by they. It differs and we have to say it by them. Then he, we have to use like by him. It was done by him. Then she, it turns into by her. It was done by her. She did something, then something was done by her, right? Then the last one is it. Then it turns into by it. So, like that we have to change these active voices into passive voices. The subjects we have to change into passive voice like this. Okay, I hope that you got the idea about active into passive in past simple tense, and we went through this as well. In the next part, let's go to some examples and try to understand more about this lesson.